Hey, I'm Hannah Mae, and this is my chapter reaction. Um, this chapter was called A Changing Planet, and it basically just goes completely off of the title because we learn about the evolution and the formation of Earth and the life forms and how they've all evolved, and how things such as cosmic events, energy sources, and changes in the atmosphere and all that has influenced us as a as a whole. The history also has been like it's been affected by many things like the solar system being created, interstellar gas and dust, photosynthesis, natural chemicals, things of that nature, and even the rare cosmic collisions. Um, we've also process other things have evolved with both limitations and progressions of energy sources like atmospheric, geochemical, and biological processes. And all these helped to shape humankind and climate as a whole. Of course, there's always going to be obstacles that we're going to face throughout this, and and for us, it was like advancements in technology and monitoring. Like NASA's trying to minimize threats from space. The first section that I'm going to talk about in our book is called Earth's Beginnings, and this one is just talking about how our solar system was formed by like gas and dust from the interstellar cloud, like I just talked about, and things like the sun and the moon and the extraterrestrial bodies that we all know have came from accumulation and gravitational attraction. In this, it talks about what gravitational attraction is, and it just causes things to shrink and rotate. And before these planets were formed, they were called protoplanets. Um, and then it tells us that accumulation is just the heat that forms the core of the planet, the hottest part of the planet. Um, our structure, like Earth, it shows how like the processes, like the basic processes of earlier instances. This diagram first right here, it really shows about like how right here the yellow and the red, it's the core and it's where the heat is. It just shows how our Earth is really made up and how accumulation, like from the heat, is right there in the middle. The second section is the early primitive life, and it just talks about the evolution of life on Earth and how it's rose throughout the years, and some believe it was due to natural chemicals that helped this, and also we learned about photosynthesis throughout this, and it just talks about how early life forms used this, because that's how they got energy from the sun and stored it. We know what fossil fuels are, and that's where the oldest evidence of life is found. And some think that the earliest life forms lived underground, actually, and that's insane to me. Like, how could they live underground? Um, but simple organisms are called generalists, and more highly evolved organisms are called specialists. Um, early organisms they got their energy from the internal heat, and because they didn't like use water, so they didn't release oxygen like I would have thought. Um, The next one is the evolution of Earth's atmosphere, and it just talks about how the atmosphere has evolved throughout the years and how there's the makeup of the atmosphere, like the troposphere, and then the tropopause is right up on the top of that, and then the stratosphere, and then the stratopause, and then the mesosphere. It talks about that and how um, the makeup of like the different processes led to gases to change. And another thing that helped shape the atmosphere was geochemical and biological processes. We know the Earth is the only atmosphere that has like sufficient oxygen for us to breathe. Actually, um, hydrogen and helium used to make up our atmosphere, but it was way too light, and water vapor was one of the most important components to it until it was condensed to our oceans. The next thing is, oh, wait, I'm going back. Then, also we know about the ozone layer. We all hear about it all the time. Like people say like a hole in the ozone, but like it's what protects us from the harmful UV radiation. Now I'm going on to the next section. It's called Arabic life. It just talks about how life on Earth has tremendously evolved throughout the decades and how it has affected the atmosphere as a whole. Biodiversity also um, was shaped by things like aerobic respiration, the diversity of life, really, a whole. Um, Atmosphere and evolving life is like linked, it says. It talks about how newer organisms used aerobic because they took the oxygen to produce water and energy. Um, some organisms still use it, but now most, I don't know how many actually do. I don't know. Sexual reproduction helped to bring about more diverse life, and of course, accelerated evolution and made the population grow. Carboniferous is just when carbon was buried and then it eventually turned to coal. This diagram really, let me zoom in. It, I liked it because it showed from literally the beginning of time, from when Earth was really formed all the way until present time, like when humans were like first like on Earth per se, so like 2.8 million years ago. Like that's insane to think about. But I liked how it gave us like a timeline of everything and really just broke it down for us. Another thing is the next section is Earth's changing climate. This one is just talks about how climate has impacted the energy was impacted by the energy from the sun and Earth's atmospheres and how climate is different than weather we know. We're also introduced to the greenhouse effect and how it has an impact on the temperature on our Earth, like on the surface, like where we are. Climate is just the average conditions and the results on the you'll see the results on the surface of the earth. Um, Climate plays a big role because like it shows like what region certain life can survive in, like a penguin can't survive in Africa, like that type of deal. Like it really dictates what kind of life can survive in which region. Then the greenhouse gases are absorbed and returned to the surface of our planet, which makes our temperatures more hot or more warm, and that's what plays into the greenhouse effect. Um, Weathering depends on temperature as well. Like the hotter it is, the more weathering is going to happen. And I thought this was very cool. Volcanism, and that's what like when the Earth was froze, it kept like the surface temperature warm enough to melt it back or whatever, because like those like they stayed. I thought that was really cool. I really didn't know. And like during this time when the Earth was froze, those organisms stayed under the ice and like lived off of the energy coming from the Earth, like in the inside of the Earth. Like that's insane to think about. And this diagram really shows about like weathering and stuff because like it shows from the volcanoes that the right here that the carbon is released into the air and the atmosphere and then it mixes with the rain and like the carbon's in the rain, so then it when it rains it reacts with the rocks and which causes weathering, and I just liked how it like drew it out for me and I was able to better get a bit better visualization of that. Next is Earth's energy endowment. It just talks about how energy resources on the Earth is limited, and how that's why we rely on things like solar energy, fuels, and fossil fuels. It's just there's also other energy like outside of Earth's range, but we can't get to them because of technology. Like we don't have that technology right now. Also, we use energy like to power everything, like our industries in our societies today. Fuels is energy that is stored, and energy comes and goes determines the climate of the Earth. We know what fossil fuels are, like coal, oil, and natural gas. Tidal energies come from the movements of energies in the moon. Actually, the only significant sources is sunlight, geothermal, and tidal energy. I did not know that. I knew that fuels were like made from like living organisms that have decayed into the earth and stuff. Um, and maybe like I think it's cool to think that maybe one day like we can get to those fuels that are like those energy sources that are outside of Earth's reach. Like we'll have that technology one day to be able to get to those. The next one is the human era. And it just talks about how humans have evolved over the centuries and how we've used energy, and like it starts from like we use fire to more modern fuels that we have now. All of these things played a huge role in society and technology advancements. When we were developing, we developed like brains and like tool making skills and things of that. And the thing that I did not know was bipedalism, and it just means that we walked with two legs. Like I just learned that. I thought it was also like insane that it was 1.7 to 800,000 years ago when we tamed fire. That's one of the most crucial things in the history of human beings. Uh, we use energy resources as like wood, certain domesticated animals, renewable energies, things of that sort. One of the most crucial advancements to humankind and the civilization was the consumption of energy and of course agriculture. So now we can make our own food and things of that nature, like we can feed ourselves per se. Um, I liked this diagram because it showed our population and how it has rose exponentially over the last like 10,000 more than that years. It's like billions of years. Anyways, I also learned this in our video this week about in the 1960s. That's when it peaked, and you can see it in this diagram right here. It was at 2.2% that year, and then like now it's down to 1.1%. So it like completely split in half. I learned that in our video this week, but I liked that diagram. Next is our last section that we learned about was science meets policy asteroid insurance, and it talks about how like cosmic collisions are rare and how they've played like the role that they have played in our Earth's history. Of course, they pose serious threats, but they're like extremely rare. And NASA are like working on ways to monitor them and like minimize the risk. Actually, small debris actually hits Earth every day, but like it burns up in our atmosphere before we ever like see it. We actually got hit by a meteor in 2013, and it was the largest in over a century. I cannot say that word, but I think it's Chelyabinsk. I don't know. But I thought that was insane. Like I didn't know that. And I was alive. I don't know. I don't remember. But also we're like more likely to contract like a disease or be caught in a natural disaster than ever being alive to witness a cosmic impact. NASA has this office called Planetary Defense Coordination, and it just tracks these potential threats and hopes to minimize these threats. But yeah, I was glad that I got to learn about like the evolution of our planet and how things have really come about. Thank you.